There we are.
Okay, so here we are, January 2023, and this is the last cup of care with Janet and myself. So, which means that we have done a year's worth of having a chat and a cup of tea or coffee. Cheers. And
Cheers.
just really getting to know each other and to have a really good understanding of what's what. So I thought I would start by asking Janet, you know, what that's meant to her from a cup of care perspective, because I know we've talked quite a lot about, takeaways as you've been training. You've just entered your third year, which is incredibly exciting, but really just a little bit of a kind of a reflection on what this has meant to you, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Janet.
Okay.
You go.
Well, it's been an absolute joy and a pleasure checking in with you every month. For me, it's been like the reflection has been absolutely crucial, really, because as student nurses, we're taught that reflection is important, and we do assessments that are based on reflection. And the whole point of that isn't to put students through their paces, it's to make good nurses. Good nurses are able to reflect because it's part of the learning process, and it's part of the doing process, and it's part of the debriefing process, and it's part of the well-being process. So for me, having this opportunity to check in with you like this has just been beneficial on all of those levels. And it's, for me, it's like I've had this really good friend along the way with me who has listened to all the times where I've been scared, I've been nervous, I've been excited, I've been overwhelmed, I've been overjoyed, I've had great times, I've had not so great times, but do you know what? In the end, it's still been really positive, and it's just been immense to be able to use these check-in points to really assess where I am and to where I want to go, and just to really be able to share some of the things that make sense to you and make sense to our audience, and just really, I feel like I really have grown, and I was thinking to myself earlier before we started, what a great year I had, and actually what a great year I had before that. I think, I am a career student. That is
a lifelong learner.
Yeah, I just feel so happy in a student environment, really. And this has just been my opportunity to share that with you and with other people, and to for you to be able to hold my hand some of the way and tell me that it's okay, and that what I'm learning is what I need to be learning. And it's just been such a great addition to my life right now. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Oh, Janet, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's just been, like you say, it's been joyful. When you have a concept and an idea, you never quite know how it's going to go. And I just think it's been, so powerful. And like you say, there could be 5 people watching or listening. There could be 500. There could be 5,000. It actually hasn't mattered, because it's just been you and me.
Yes.
So, but it is going out to other people, and there is some lovely feedback, and there'll be more of that coming up in the future. And I guess in a way, it's a little bit like the work that I get privileged to do every single day in coaching healthcare professionals, because there is an element of that within it, in terms of just being present and seeing you and valuing you for where you are in your career. And you mentioned, you feel listened to, and I think that's a lovely thing to say, and it is incredibly valuable at this point, you know, for us all in this profession to be seen and heard and valued. So, you know, if that's made the difference to you, that's all that matters, and anybody else that gets anything out of it is an absolute bonus. So that's great. And so with that in mind, it is fairly sad, but you know, I'll you know, mention some little things a little bit later on at the end of our call. So I think that would be a good thing to do. I hadn't thought about doing that, but I think I will acknowledge that. But yeah, it is a very, very difficult time out there. And I know you and I have always tried our best to keep it light and not too political or too kind of ranty. It's always, there's always the potential to do that, because it's, you know, everybody's in a pretty sticky situation, and I totally admire your resilience and your determination that no matter what, you're going ahead, and you've got, you know, a very clear pathway ahead of you, and you know, you're going to duck and dive with these obstacles that are being thrown at you at the moment, because, you know, from a morale point of view, it is hard out there, and I know we're going to kind of touch on some of those things. So you came up with the fantastic idea of us having a little bit of kind of fun and making it quite light, and me getting the opportunity to get my wand out, because I love getting my wand out. So we were going to kind of ask each other questions, well, come up with scenarios around kind of what ifs in a way, really, aren't they? So that we could just have two heads together, two professionals together. We obviously haven't got the ability to make the powerful decisions that some of these things might conjure up, but we still have an understanding and a wish and a desire for things to be slightly different. And, you know, at the end of the day, everything starts with that desire. If enough people say the same thing, then it pivots change. So let's make a start on it and just see where we go. So I think you should start first. So what's your first one going to be? So it could be is it okay to, or what were the other things? Was it okay to, or is it okay that, or wouldn't it be great if? So what would be your first thing that you'd add on to that?
Yeah, so this is a great game you can play with absolutely anybody about anything at all, and it's a great game to play instead of I Spy. You know, you're stuck in the car with the kids or whatever, and you're playing something just to keep people occupied. Well, you can play wouldn't it be great if. And in a nursing context, this is we do this in our own heads, or with somebody that we're just passing the time with, maybe in the middle of a night shift or in the canteen or wherever. And like you say, it's just blue sky thinking, nothing more than that. But it's just giving people the chance to see the world in a different way. And if we just made small changes, would that make a big difference to individuals? And they're totally random. So like my first one, this is just going to come totally out of the blue, but I'm going to go with it. And it is, wouldn't it be great if nurses could sleep during a night shift?
Okay.
So there you go. That's my statement. I'm going to back that up with research has been done that when we work night shifts, we actually shorten our lives, and it contributes to weight gain, and it contributes to loads of other poor aspects of quality of life, like brain fogginess, obviously drowsiness during the night and the day, poor sleep patterns. You know, once you start working shifts, people often notice it's very hard to go back to a normal sleeping pattern. And there are loads of reasons why we have to work night shifts. Of course we do. You know, patients are still there at night. They need looking after. But night shifts, if they aren't done well, they can be very damaging for nurses. And there's actually been pilots that have been run where nurses have been given even very short spaces of time to nap, even just 30 odd minutes. And the studies show that actually that can be very beneficial. It can improve people's memory, it can improve the quality of their work. It can prevent silly mistakes. It reduces blood pressure, or at least it regulates blood pressure for the people on the night shift. It eases mood issues, all sorts of benefits just from even very short lengths of time. And this is something that actually other professions, other industries have been studying as well. Airline pilots.
Just about to say, yeah.
Yeah. Some airlines have started putting in napping rooms for pilots, for flight attendants, for air traffic controllers. All these people work night shifts, you know, and they're seeing the benefits. And so wouldn't it be great if nurses could officially have a little nap? Do you think that would make a difference? I mean, you've worked nights before. How did you find working nights?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it really does mess with your whole kind of circadian rhythm, doesn't it? It really does. I have never slept as a nurse on night duty, but I know that there's been some healthcare assistants that have done. And I know generally there's a bit of a backlash on it for that happening. But I love how you frame the conversation about the evidence for how it supports you. And what made me think straight away, so I have the Aura ring that I wear that gives me, breaks down all kinds of information on quality of my sleep, all kinds of stats throughout the day. It goes straight onto my phone. Now, not in a working day, but like maybe over a weekend, if I had a 5-10 minute nap, it would recognize that I'd had that, and it would adjust the quality of my readiness and my sleep overall pattern generally. Even 5-10 minutes would put my score up higher, and I would benefit from that. It would show how I would benefit from it that day and the next day. So even 5-10 minutes can make quite a difference. And you know, now that you're asking me to think about it, I think that it is the right thing to do, because I think there's a lot of evidence to show that people that work constant nights, and there are people, and that there certainly were in the last full-time job I had in a nursing home, they were actually agency staff that came in, but they have been doing it for years. It literally, there's evidence to show it shortens people's lives.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. You know, when you get so involved in well-being and life-work balance, as I call it, you don't have a life out of work because you're topsy-turvy. And, you know, it might be about money, and it tends to be the reason people do it. But what about the rest of the social life? What about your partner or partners, or, you know, or your family? So, but it has to be done. As you and I both know, nursing is 24-hour care. But I do think you're absolutely right that there should be more of a kind of protected time within that, recognizing that it is a difficult time to work, that there needs to be a protected time for, you know, staff to take. Of course, the place that we fall down in an ideal world, because this is what this one gives us, is that you need a mirror buddy. So when you're off, they're on, and the same with the healthcare assistants. And of course, what that equates to is more staff at a time. You know, I think we'll probably come on to that, at a time where that's really hard. So I think in essence, it's really needed. I also think it would be an attractive thing from a recruitment perspective and a benefit that this particular company looks after their staff so well that they recognise that a 20-minute sleep nap or a nap, whatever, in a special place is really important. And going back to the airlines, I won't say which one just in case, but I have a very, very, very close dear friend who has done in her lifetime long haul quite often. and she got to go into this amazing pod that came down, and she got into it on the aircraft. You know, the rest of everybody else was just sitting in their seats, but even just for half an hour with the mask on and the earplugs in, and would wake up refreshed and ready to go. And that's actually quite an important point, because I think the majority of people have a default setting where if you say just go and have a nap, they come back with, well, if I do that, I won't sleep properly later.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's actually not necessarily true.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's horses for courses again, isn't it? And it's very much, individuals are different. There are some people who would never ever dream of napping, whether it's day or night. You know, I know people who, when the term nana naps came in, nana naps doesn't have good connotations, and that's for a reason, you know. But some people swear by being able to get those 40 winks. Other people say it absolutely wrecks their rhythm, but night shifts wreck your rhythm anyway. So very much I would want it to be something that people could choose to do if they wanted to or not. And if they really felt that it disrupted their rhythm, then you don't have to do it. But other people like me, when I worked for the police, I did find benefit in using my break to sleep. But because I was using my break to sleep, I wasn't using my break to rehydrate or to eat. So, you know, so you're having to make choices about things all the way along. And when you said there was a backlash against it, where does that backlash come from? Why would people be so offended by it?
Because people right at this moment in time are not paid to sleep.
Yeah.
It would be like there were people that got quite nasty about it. Like, how the hell can she do that if I don't get to do it? You know, you're here for an hourly rate or whatever, and you should be fulfilling that. I think there was actually some disciplinary action taken on somebody that put two chairs together in a lounge and was seen on CCTV camera for doing so. And you know, and that's because it's not a given. It's not something that's built in. So
it's not the actual sleeping that people are so against, but it's not kind of saying so how are you not a superhuman if you're not able to go all night? It's just.
So yeah, definitely. And it kind of leads into my next one as well, because it's a similar thing. Well, it's not similar, but it's well, you know, wouldn't it be nice if we throughout the day as nurses got paid breaks?
Yes.
Now, actually, there's a similarity between the two things.
There is, yes.
Because it is a benefit to everybody concerned, isn't it? Yeah. So it's not the norm, as you and I know. And it's like, it always just feels, it kind of feels like a little bit like a ouch when people say, you know, here's your contract and your breaks are not paid. And you think, what's that then? It doesn't kind of compute, does it? You think, well, I'm there all day. Like, shall I just leave and go home and come back in half an hour? You know, there's just no reasoning behind it. But again, like you just said, if you had a paid break, you know, even if it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which would tend to be the normal time, wouldn't it, after you've done the jog round, and etc. It's a recognition and it's a value to the professional in charge, or the, you know, and I'm not saying that healthcare support workers shouldn't have the same, but we're just having conversation about nurses, and I'm taking a stand for the nurses, thinking they have a certain level of responsibility with a lot going on all the time as part of a management role or a leadership role, let's say. And I think it kind of lends itself even more to the fact that actually you just need to take a step out just for half an hour and just take it all away to come back refreshed and ready. So like you say, in that time you could have your hydration and have your food, and knowing that your employer values you and sees you so much for the professional that you are, that they recognize that you need to have that break regardless. It's part of your day. Your shift is 8 to 8. You need to have that half-hour break at some point in the day just to recoup, and they are going to gift that to you because they value the necessity for it. And it's also like the night duty, sleeping on night duty, a perceived benefit from the organisation in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, it makes me think of some interesting points that because our breaks aren't paid at the moment, we actually have to work a make-up shift every 6-8 weeks, which consists of, because they don't actually take the money, the hours off us from those breaks. So our shifts at the hospital are generally 12.5 hours. That's what our week is made up of. But because we've been there where we've done 3 shifts, where there's been half an hour where we're not paid, we actually owe that time back to the employer. So every 8 weeks, we have to work a make-up shift where we're giving that day back to the employer. Now, if your breaks were paid, we wouldn't have to give that day back to the employer. That would actually be a day that we would get back as a day off. That's just the way make-up shifts work, you know. So it's kind of like it's a bizarre situation actually, where we can't do anything about that half-hour break. It's actually illegal. It's not even a legal entitlement. It's a legal duty of the employer to give us half an hour off. They must, by law, give us half an hour off in a 12-hour shift, in a 12.5-hour shift. So, but then we owe the employer that time back. So it becomes our legal duty then to provide that day back to the employer. So
it just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No, it doesn't.
I wonder, you might know, what's the situation with lorry drivers? They have to take breaks often for safety reasons. You could make a comparison. Are they paid? Do you know?
It would be down to the employer again. I mean, this is what I know from being a business owner and being an employer in a small business. It would be down to the employer whether they would make that paid time or not paid time. But there are employers who do make it paid time, and there are employers who don't make it paid time. And I guess it comes down to their budgets and the bottom line of their profits. But we work for a not-for-profit industry. So, you know, so it should be different. And also there's the fact of when staff don't take their breaks, and staff don't always take their breaks, that is their time, isn't it? And they still have to do their make-up shift later on. No, they can't.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because it is a legal requirement for you to have your half-hour break. We're actually breaking the law by not taking our break. So you can't.
That's the interesting bit, and we should really push that, so that everybody takes a break in some way.
Yeah, but we can't acknowledge not taking breaks by then saying, well, I want my makeup day back. Because we shouldn't be taking the breaks. We legally, for health reasons and safety reasons, those breaks have to be there. But we know that organisational pressures don't always allow for some staff to take their breaks. But then you can't then say, well, I'm not having my makeup day. Then I've worked through all of my breaks, so I'm keeping that makeup day. They'll still make you work your makeup day.
So I think in the future, well, not even in the future, I don't mean like next year, I mean in the next week or so, I think employers across the board that actually put the health and well-being of nurses ahead of everything else are the ones that will win.
Yes.
Because if we're not able to rely on the government possibly to support some things, then it's down to the individual employer of taking a stand to make that happen. And when recruitment is so difficult, like you said earlier, it's all those little tiny things that will make the difference.
Yes.
So
this is what we're talking
just pushing it, you know, a hot meal provided. I mean, you know, that's not always the case. I'm thinking about maybe more the private sector when I was working in the care home industry, you know, a uniform, DBS, paid breaks, you know, just so you go down the list, you think, oh, that's, these people are really thinking about what's important here to me.
Yeah. And it's the analogy that you like to use when you put your own mask on first, you know.
Definitely.
So yeah, you know, this is part of putting staff's mask on first so that they can do their jobs.
And like, you know, I think most importantly, if we can't look to the government to help us, then the employers need to make the changes. So it's not, and it really isn't rocket science.
Like I say, it's just little things. You stole one of my ideas, by the way. We'll be coming to that. But yeah, little things, even things like NMC registration, when many people are shocked to find out that nurses have to pay £150 every year to re-register. But I'm finding job adverts where that's included as one of the benefits, that the employer will pay that. And those things make a difference. It's £150 every year. It's actually a slap in the face to realise you've got to pay to be a nurse. But somebody's got to pay the NMC. But the employer in many cases is now offering to do that, and that's great.
Yeah, sometimes there's a caveat, like after 3 or 6 months that they'll pay it. But yeah, no, again, these benefits are really, really important. Okay, so what's the next one?
No, it's your.
Oh no, I just did the. Didn't I just do the? Yeah, I did the.
You did. I'm sorry.
It's all right, folks. We're fine. We're absolutely fine. We've got this.
Okay. All right. You're going to like this one. Wouldn't it be great if big business sponsored the NHS the way that they sponsor football players? And I've got some stats for you. Here we go. Ronaldo, his sponsorship deal, $53 million. Messi, $62 million. Neymar, $56 million. Now, the dollar and the pound, practically the same thing right now, not far off.
I'm gonna have to breathe through this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, how many millions is that? I mean, that's a massive sum of money. That's only 3 players, and that's only for a period of time. It might be over 10 years, but still,
this is sponsorship.
These are sponsorship deals.
So that's not even what they get paid.
No, this isn't their wages. This is all those big sports brands paying Ronaldo to wear their trainers. That's what this is. And
so how do you see this working? Tell us how you see it working for nurses.
So easily that just a fraction of those millions could be switched to trusts, to a trust. You know, if every big area of business adopted one trust, there's more than enough businesses to cover all the trusts, actually. You know, you could have a Manchester United trust and a Chelsea trust. You know, they could all get a share of this pot. And it doesn't even have to be as big as those numbers there, but channeling that money into trusts, into the equipment that they need, into the staff, and some of my other, wouldn't it be great if to actually tie into this? But if that money was going to those trusts to support the patients and to support the staff, then they could still advertise in public areas of the hospital. We have advertisements around the hospital. We have shops that carry products, it could all still, they can promote themselves. They can say, aren't we doing great things for this trust? They can do that, but the trusts could be benefiting from that money. I also see opportunities where these big businesses could be getting behind community events that are supporting trust goals. Level, at the grassroots level, then we can be achieving the holistic things that we want, the public health messages around health and fitness and well-being. There's so many ways that money that's going to one man could be used for a community setting. I just think it's quite obscene that individuals get that money to do what they want with, and I know they do good charity work, they do, but that work could cut out that middleman, essentially. They could even still give Messi all that money and still provide in money for trusts, because clearly they've got the profits to do that. And surely the tax man would look favourably on them for sharing more of their profits with charitable events. I just think there's a huge opportunity missed there from the trusts who do a lot of work to bring money into their trusts. Why are they not asking them? I don't know. What would you think?
It's such a good question, and again, it's kind of feels like a no-brainer question that it really should be happening. But I wonder if it's just tied up with, I'm not really even quite sure how to explain it, put it into words. Like, would it be the right person? Would it have to be one of the footballers, or would it be a big local company? And have they got the right kind of image? And are they doing the right thing that's health related, so that there is no kind of fiddling going on, or somebody had been given a special contract? But all these things have been done badly up until this point. And I have a feeling it hasn't been done right because they feared that would happen. But if it's been done, the PPE for that fiasco, that's one example. It's not sponsorship, I know, but it's a different way of moving money around with products. It's not too far away from the idea or the concept. So I think the question is, how do you make sure that the person or the organization aligns with the trust's values and is seen to be a sponsor that really values what this organization is trying to do? And I don't think that's too difficult to find.
No, and I think in some ways you kind of have to hold these benefactors to account if you feel that their goals aren't turning out to match what we would want them to be. And I suppose the point that I'm getting at really is just that the money all seems to be flowing in a very peculiar direction. That these millions and millions of dollars and pounds go in a certain direction, which isn't to the actual people who need it. And that's really the point that I want to make with this. If this is a fictional football club that would have only humanitarian aims, of course, and a fictional big business company, and we know that isn't always the reality, but at the end of the day, people run those companies, and people need support. And I just look around the world and I just think, how is it that 1% of the world's population owns 99% of the world's resources? And 99% of us have 1% of the world's resources, and that's just wrong. And so this is just my crazy way of thinking, well, how do we divert some of those resources to the areas that really need it? And in a utopian world, we would all be working for other people, wouldn't we? Everything that I would do, according to certain philosophers, would be for somebody else, because in doing that, I would benefit
You'll
myself.
grow. Yeah. Yeah.
And we kind of, lots of us do that on a daily basis where we can. That, you know, that is part of our mindset, that this is why nurses become nurses, because we want to do something for other people. And I do think in the very big companies at the top of that pyramid, there is an element of that too, that it's not just about making sure the tax man doesn't get all the profits. There is an element of social responsibility there too, that the Steve Jobs of the world, you know, there are very influential people who want to make a difference, and they are doing, and we just need to remind people that that should be part of the social consciousness, especially now more than any time ever before. You know, the state we're in on this little old planet of ours, at some stage we are going to have a really big change of mindset. Now I am really getting really utopian right now, so I need to stop.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I know we've talked about it before. What do you think would be the first thing that could happen to start this growing, you know, actually becoming a reality? What would be the first thing that would need to happen?
Probably the first thing that would need to happen would probably just be a relationship with companies, a company, not even money, but raising awareness of what issues are, and going from there, I guess, really starting small, you know. But it has to be on that understanding of this isn't it's not a quick fix, it's not a cheap fix, it's not a publicity stunt. It's developing that relationship of social responsibility.
I really love that. Yeah, I really do. It's
It
not
has
like
to
a
be.
PR thing to get the logo on the you know, the scrubs or the sweatshirt or whatever. That's not what it's about. It's a lot deeper than that, and it's a collaboration between two things. No, I really think it's really good, to the point that I'd like to add to your idea as well, with another what if kind of scenario. And that's because I was thinking, oh my goodness, what is the solution to the future of staffing? And it is recruitment, but you cannot recruit out of thin air. So it's going back to exactly where you are right now. And, you know, it sounds quite crude, but it's a pipeline. You've got to start somewhere and get that throughput going through. And I was just thinking about staffing, and I thought, well, what if we took your idea that you just talked about, where sponsorship was concerned, and as well as, or instead of, whichever works, nurses were individually sponsored by companies to complete their nursing degrees?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I'd go for that. Yeah, why not? Yeah.
And you know that I was just about to say, you know, the way you can adopt a puppy or a donkey, you can adopt a nurse.
And I'd have to send out my photo with my little biog on the back. You can put it on the wall and say, this is the nurse we've adopted, everybody.
Actually, I know we're laughing, but it's actually not a bad idea. Why should it be just animals?
Yes. It's what they do. Just don't make me dress up in some weird costume, though, please.
I honestly, I mean, I know we're laughing, but there is actually some credence in that, because you would then be seeing a bit like you and I over the last year. You'd be seeing that person's journey, or say a company had 5 or 10 spaces that they were able to, it's obviously quite a lot of money, but it's money that's going in a different direction, but still really, really important. And that nurse could catch up with the company every 6 weeks or whatever, and there could be lots of PR and collaboration within that as well, and the university.
Yeah. I mean, there are foundations and charitable groups that as a student you can access, but I don't know how many of them are directly aimed at nurses, but usually it's such a hard thing to get to actually succeed at. That they tend to be quite small pots of money for very particular circumstances. And it's hard to apply for those things and get them, but they could be available on a much wider scale, for nurses who want to opt into that kind of support. Why not? Yeah. I mean, my views on student loans anyway. We need to stop calling them loans, essentially, because they're not. But still, that's the overriding fear amongst people, is that by doing university study, you're saddling yourself with a lot of debt, and we know that that's actually not the case. But we could take away that whole scenario for people, and people's education does have to be paid for. Universities do need to get their funding from somewhere, and at the moment it's just that it's central government are paying that bill or not, as we know from the national debt. And the government will be reviewing its policy on loans, and the situation we're in now, where loans are written off after 30 years, that could well change in the next 10 years when they can't afford to do that anymore. The whole student loan situation could become much more critical to the individual student further down the line, and absolutely, businesses sponsoring students should be part of their social responsibility. If they want good graduates of any kind in their business, and this does happen in various sectors, then they have to front load that. They have to put in the investment themselves. And why should medicine and care be any different to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we haven't got much longer, so I'm going to ask you, just on the back of that, this is quite a hard question, so prepare yourself. So with the situation of recruitment being such a difficult one, what would you say to the fact that, although we're talking about students coming through and that's all very good, imagine that we're both like 22 or whatever, and we're going into nursing right now. So with everything that is out there happening, what I'm trying to ask is, how on earth are nurses expected to make the right decision, or a decision to go into nursing, when they look down the lens right now and think, why would I want to go into a job that I'm just going to be exhausted at, that there's not enough people doing, and it doesn't, everybody, the morale's really low and the wages are really low and blah, 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 blah. How are we expecting people to make positive choices about nursing when that is the reality of the situation?
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Because we're seeing that the undergraduate recruitment figures for nursing is down. We're seeing massive shortages in the social care sector. People are making the decision not to do it. And the only way we can change that really is the very painful process that we are now going through in this country I see this really as we're going through a paradigm shift, and paradigm shifts are always volcanic, they're always tectonic, they're always painful, and massive change occurs, and we're living through that right now, and we're only at the start of that. You will always get people who run towards the fire, who run towards the danger, and they will carry on doing that. But we also need people who wouldn't run towards the fire to realise that it's not fire, that it's not dangerous, that they've got a contribution to make, even though they don't want to run towards the fire. The care sector takes people of every personality type and every strength, and every solution method. It takes them all. There's a place for everybody, but at the moment we can't really provide the answer to your question, because it doesn't look good, and we have the only answer to that is we've got to change it. We've got to make it more attractive. We have to keep plugging away. You said earlier that the two of us can't make the changes. Well, actually, I think we can, because when it's the critical mass of lots of us, then that makes the difference. And your voice and my voice is in there. And when that happens, then we can all make the difference. But we've got to live through the pain. So, and change will come. It will have to. If we want to stop the NHS falling over, we have to catch it. And people are making really good ways of catching it. I'm hearing all sorts of things on the news, and I'm reading very innovative things that happen all over the country, where they're using different venues, and they're repurposing. And it was in the news today about doctors actually taking ultrasound machines into people's homes. You know, there are things happening out there which will contribute ultimately to a rejuvenation of what we've got. But it's that part of that is about responding to the change in what we need. You know, the NHS is a brilliant institution, and thank God it was invented, but it can never stay. I was reading this only yesterday. It's actually based on the work of Charles Handy. We have to keep moving and reinventing. The minute we stand still, and this was actually a palliative services document that I was reading, the minute we stand still, we actually start moving backwards. And that is essentially what's happened to the NHS, that it hasn't continued moving forward, but we are starting to gather momentum, and we are starting to move forward.
Oh, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why we have a nurse of the future sitting in front of us here. How amazing. And you are so right. You know, this too will pass. Yes. That's the theme. And I think the other thing that we've always got to be conscious of is that the media, they are intent on doom and gloom. They just want us to feel like shit. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's their intent. And, you know, it takes a positive mindset like you have, a growth mindset like you have. It takes recognizing that people are people, and their well-being and their career development and their choices and their pathways are significant to each individual, and each person needs something different. And wow, that is amazing. It'll come around in a different way. It'll be a completely different animal, as you quite rightly say. It needs to be. The time is to dissolve it and let it evolve into something new. And you're part of that. And you know, I've always felt that excitement and that kind of adrenaline rush from you, that you are part of the future of healthcare in the UK. And that's absolute testament to you that you are that individual. So thank you so much, Janet, for everything. And, you know, I know obviously for all the right reasons, you and I are very much going to be staying in touch. And I'm just really grateful for the last year of getting to know you and being on your journey.
I've loved it. Thank you so much.